All right, nice. So I'm recording to the cloud now. Looks good. All right, welcome everyone. I am Deborah Hemingway, CEO of the Maryland Development Center, and I am very happy to be here on this call with a number of exceptional CEOs and former CEOs. I think this is the panel at Baltimore Innovation Week with probably the most CEOs in one place. So hope you guys have lots of questions and can tap into some of the experience of the team here today. All right, so to kick us off, I would like to go through and just have each of our panelists introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are and what their background is briefly, and then where they are now in their career. So we can just kick us off. Jonathan, why don't you go first?
Hi, Jonathan Pearl. I am the CEO, founder of a startup company, Surgical Vision Systems, focused on imaging. My background is in general surgery. I'm a practicing general surgeon. I've been in practice at the University of Maryland for about 9 years now and spent some time in the Navy prior to that. I've been with MDC since the outset, over 5 years now. And it's kind of been a slow go, but finally making some traction and making good progress on our projects.
Excellent. All right, Neo, let's go to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Neo Gamo. I am CEO and founder and CEO of NeuroSonics Medical. We're developing novel ultrasound devices for minimally invasive neurosurgery. And my background is I worked for about 15 years in academic research in neuroscience and psychiatry. And then in 2017, I had the opportunity to jump ship. And so that's when we founded our company. And then I've been a part of MDC for a couple of years now. I also recently became the Vice President of Business Development at MDC.
Yeah, great. And Stephen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Stephen Restaino. I'm the CEO of Sonosa Medical and also the Director of Engineering at MDC. I got started here in 2017 after finishing my PhD in bioengineering at the University of Maryland. And basically, in my PhD, I was looking at biosensors, but what I really liked about it was the translational aspects of it and kind of the promise of creating technology that people could actually use. And so I came to MDC looking to advance that. And I've had a lot of fun so far, kind of managing a lot of projects. And I'm now taking one out on my own, Sonosa Medical, and we are developing ultrasound technologies for diagnosis and therapy for sleep apnea.
Yes, very exciting. Jeff, and you're muted, so unmute yourself.
Sorry, this is my first time using Zoom. Just kidding. I'm Jeff Wolfe. I am a professor of otolaryngology at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. I have been here for 20 years. I am, like Jonathan Pearl, I'm one of the original partners or founders of MDC. And I'm not a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur. And I am, the Sonosa Medical devices are based upon some of my intellectual property.
Excellent. Brad.
Hello, I'm Brad Hennessey. I'm the co-founder and CEO of NextStep Robotics. We're focused on improving mobility in stroke using a robotic training protocol. I've been with MDC since we founded the company back in 2017. We brought our company there. We've grown since we've been there. We've got 7 employees, hiring more now. Got some grant funding and some investment along the way. And I'm excited to share my experiences.
Excellent. Great. So those are our panelists. If anyone else wants to jump in, you have 30 seconds to introduce yourself. Otherwise, we'll just get on with the program. All right, going once, twice. All right, so you guys have heard the panelists mention a lot about MDC and their introductions, and we'll dive into it a little bit more as we move on. But to give you an overview at MDC, what we do is we create companies. So other entities will take in a company and then accelerate it. But MDC's aim is to build health tech and medical technology companies from the earliest stage, which is the idea phase. So you can bring us a drawing on the back of a napkin and you'll be welcome at MDC. And one of the unique things that we do is we have engineers and business experts who work directly with the clinicians. So we really bring together the medical, the engineering, the business into one entity that we like to consider a powerhouse. So the first thing that we do is we integrate this research talent with some IP and commercialization to remove the hurdles and then to accelerate development and commercialization. So we have a new screening process. And so this is a 2-week intensive process that kicks off any idea, because if you have an idea, how do you know if it's something that you should pursue further, right? Because there are lots of really good, really wonderful ideas in the world, but the question is, how do you know if it's something that should be commercialized? So that's the first thing that we do, is we take an intensive look at that. And then if it passes that, then we bring it on into the program. And the program is when we spend a couple years just coming around an idea and building out a company around it. So that's a snapshot of the overview of what MDC does. And so now I'd like to move back to our panelists to talk about their companies. So panelists, can you tell us a little bit about what company you're involved in now and about the product market fit? So what need is your company trying to solve? And then also the stage of your company. Are you an idea company, pre-seed, seed, fundraising? A couple of you. Yeah, so let's hear it. And let's go through the order that I just introduced you all in. So Jonathan, will you kick us off?
Hi, it's Jonathan again. The company is called Surgical Vision Systems. And it was in the outset, I had an idea and I brought it to Gil, who's on the panel. And the idea was to use thermal imaging in surgery. We oftentimes use sort of antiquated, clunky technology to obtain images in surgery, use fluoroscopy, which uses a huge machine, and ionizing radiation. So I thought it would be simpler to supplant the ionizing radiation by using thermal imaging. If we wanted to see the inside of a tube from the intestines or the bile system, we could inject cold water into it and then detect the thermal signature. So that was my initial idea. I brought that to Gil, and we were able to get funding through the MII, Maryland Innovation Initiative, and develop a prototype. That project sort of fizzled out because of IP issues, but it did springboard me into a bunch of other different ideas. I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about how to develop a prototype, et cetera. So now we're focusing still on imaging, looking primarily at non-contact type imaging modalities that are small and portable and don't have ionizing radiation. And we recently got funding from Department of Defense through an SBIR grant to develop such a technology. We just got funding. This is after 5 years of trying multiple different avenues and multiple different funding sources. So it is a story of persistence and hard work and getting up early in the morning, writing these grants, and just kind of sticking with it. I've had a lot of support from MDC and couldn't have done any of that without them because I had no idea how to navigate the landscape. So now we have a viable project and we're hoping to build a viable company. And thanks to MDC for a lot of that.
Yeah, great. So it sounds like you're somewhere between idea and pre-seed. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Formulating the idea, getting it to be stronger and something that will be fundable and ultimately marketable.
Excellent. All right, Neo, take it away.
Hi again. So NeuroSonics Medical is commercializing a novel focused ultrasound device for minimally invasive neurosurgery. So I want to echo what Jonathan just said. I think MDC's sweet spot is really trying to work with the at the earliest stages and trying to get the right start with our companies. So yeah, we actually our invention, which is from Johns Hopkins, is actually it was initially envisioned for brain tumor surgery. But we did the I-Core program with the MDC team. We talked to a lot of surgeons, and we actually pivoted quite a bit over a couple of years. And finally, we actually found that with drug-resistant trying to treat drug-resistant epilepsy through surgery, through minimally invasive surgery, we found that fit, what our technology can do in terms of its technical features. And so, so it took a bit of time to pivot and get there, but we're feeling pretty good about the direction we're going in now. And we also found that from talking to a lot of the surgeons and, learning about what's out there, our technology has the features that could provide an advantage over competing devices for drug-resistant epilepsy. So that's where we are. We're also still pretty early stage. I would say we are pre-seed. We've raised a little over $500,000 in grant funding to get to our almost final prototype.
Excellent. Thank you for that overview. And our next company, Sonosa Medical, let's go to Stephen and Jeff.
So we are Sonosa Medical. Jeff and I are a team. We've got a couple more people in the background helping us get through our prototypes and testing. But basically, we are developing technologies for diagnosis and treatment of sleep apnea. Like I mentioned before, this is one of the unique aspects of MDC. But I'll let Jeff tell the story about how we basically came out of an idea from the founding of MDC.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, I'm an otolaryngologist, head and neck surgeon, and one of my colleagues and I were talking about just the struggles with diagnosis and the difficulty in diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea. And so we had multiple conversations and sort of decided that ultrasound might be a way to image where obstruction in sleep apnea is occurring. And so we went to a cadaver lab and we developed a cadaveric model of sleep apnea, and we had a very sort of cursory ultrasound system using to see if we could identify the site of obstruction, and we realized we could do this. And so now we had an idea and we had IP, which we had filed, and it was sitting in a drawer in the Office of Research and Development. And then I met Gil and started this discussion, and this is what MDC is perfect for, is taking the idea and moving it along with the engineers and having other physicians in MDC that you can bounce ideas off of, which then allowed us to prototype and get into testing. And so that's where we are.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. And so with Jeff's help kind of nurturing the project as we've been going along on the engineering side, we've taken that early stage idea, and now we have a full prototype. We're in preclinical trials. We've raised about a little over $3 million in SBIR funding in order to take this forward to develop both the diagnostic and the therapeutic. So we're in a pretty good position now because MDC was there at the beginning to kind of provide us the infrastructure and the mentorship to really form a stable entity that could actually create a technology that's commercializable. So along with Jeff's help, just being there to guide the technical development into an actual medical device, MDC has been great. And the technical development, just kind of providing those resources and then helping us formulate the business itself. So
great. Thank you for that. And next we'll go to next steps.
Great, thanks, Deborah. So I'll share a story that's not unsimilar to the other ones you've already heard. You'll see that where MDC's strong suit is for sure. It's very similar to Jeff and Steven's story. We came to MDC with a technology and an idea and some IP that was actually pretty well researched already. We had about 10 years of clinical trials that showed 4 positive clinical trials that showed we could durably reverse what's called foot drop in stroke, which is the inability to raise your toe when you're walking. Right now, patients are given a rigid brace that locks them in at a 90-degree angle. It serves a purpose. It makes sure they don't fall. It helps them with not falling and things like that. But it also has some issues with learned disuse and doesn't really improve the patient's mobility. So we developed a technology using a robotic training protocol that initially targeted the ankle. It has targets that are that go beyond the ankle. Our IP is for use of our control system over any impaired joint. But we came to MDC with some good research that showed we had a technology that wasn't only just developed from a research lab, but actually was already shown that it was effective. But what we didn't have was a viable product. We had a very large control system that was about the size of a washing machine, a very bulky robotic device that had to be tethered and plugged into a wall, and not a real clear fit in terms of clinic workflow and things like that. So we came to MDC that had the engineering infrastructure, which is what we really needed at that time. And in 4 months, working with 2 MDC engineers, they spun out a prototype version that was able to show us feasibility. We tested it in 10 stroke patients. It was now battery operated. It fit on a belt, and was portable. We used it in the parking lot outside just to demonstrate that. And in 4 months, I did my first pitch ever. It walked away with $250,000. That was in 2017. To date, now we've raised $2 million in venture capital funding with a lot of help from MDC and strong introductions to people in the ecosystem, as well as a $5.5 million cooperative agreement from NIH. So really kind of where MDC fit us best was that engineering and really key infrastructure, as Stephen just pointed out too. We were able to build our device, demonstrate it, prove feasibility, and then take that beyond to do real customer discovery, understand the product market fit a little bit better, and participate in the I-Corps programs and things like that, to the point now where we're getting ready to launch the device this year. We're looking for clinics to place it at, and we have an IRB approval at the University of Maryland to do a 120-person 3-year clinical trial.
Excellent. So you guys have heard from our panelists who have companies that are all the way from the idea pre-seed stage all the way through funding. So yeah, we're happy to take questions. You guys can drop them in the chat. If you have anything you'd like to say to our panelists, we'll be actively moderating the chat throughout this session. All right. And so to our panelists, you all have told us a little bit about your relationship with MDC. So I'd like to go back to the beginning. You guys are some of the most exciting companies in the MDC portfolio. So what stage were you at when you entered MDC? And then why did you decide to enter a startup studio? And what did it look like for you coming into our studio?
Well, I was there at the beginning, and there was no MDC. And the idea, probably we should have Gil discuss this a bit, but the idea was that, as Jeff mentioned, there's a lot of technology that is developed from the universities, in particular our university, but this is not unique to Baltimore by any means, that really goes undeveloped. Surgeons, clinicians, researchers, they have all kinds of great ideas. And in our case, we have to file any IP through the university. And then many times that just languishes there because me in particular, I don't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the wherewithal at that time to advance something forward. I didn't know how to get funding. I didn't know how to write a business plan. I didn't know who the engineers were. So I had no connections. So had I not met somebody who has done this before, I wouldn't have been able to make any progress. So that was the idea behind the formation of MDC. And Jeff is just one of, I guess, 6 or 7 of my colleagues who have joined as the founding partners of MDC who have technology, and there's Gil who just came on, and who are advancing it from idea to university technology, IP disclosure, to, we hope, funding and prototype, etc. That's all for me.
All right, and Gil, would you like to make some follow-up comments on that, on how MDC came to be?
Oh, Sure, thanks. Um, so I had done technology companies in the past over several years, a lot of years actually. And in around 2015, I was talking with the University of Maryland administration about the need, and I thought the opportunity to try to bring more of IP into the marketplace, and sort of brainstorming about a mechanism to do that. And we had had a long process at the University of Maryland College Park and Baltimore, joint meetings about the need to link engineering and medicine, and that there was a tremendous opportunity. So I guess I jumped the gun and founded MDC in early 2016. I met Jonathan Pearl first, and he had an idea for a thermal imaging laparoscope. It was something that we knew how to build, sort of, and we understood, and he convinced us of the utility of it. And so we did get some funding. We put together a prototype. Jonathan tested it in an animal at an animal test facility. And that, to my mind, confirmed that this sort of thing is feasible, to start with an idea, a very good one, and move ahead. And the next company, there were other projects that that we worked on, but the next one that really was very concrete was NextStep Robotics. I met Richard Macco, neurologist at the University of Maryland, and then Brad Hennessey, and they explained to me how recovery from foot drop works. It actually relies on brain plasticity, and that if you simply remind the brain to lift the foot every in a normal walking pattern, the brain will sometimes reconstruct pathways, and a person will learn to walk normally, or at least reasonably well. And so again, we had some funding from the TEDCO MII program. I want to give them a shout out for supporting very, very early ideas. We worked on it, so very young engineers worked on the idea, and after a few months, we had put together a truly kludgy engineering looking device. Brad, I would say kludgy is a kind phrase. It worked. We had stroke victims walking around in our office, and it was very, very cool. Brad is an amazing character. He quit his job to become CEO. And then when he did his first pitch, he wore this kludgy device. And it was compelling, apparently, based on where you've gotten to. And so NextStep grew, received additional funding, won a large grant from NIH, and attracted a fair amount of investment capital, and will be our first graduate. So NextStep has been in the space for 3 years, Brad, approximately. And so they are graduating. Sonosa Medical was formed a couple of years ago based on an idea from Jeff and Stephen. It is undergoing its sort of half graduation. It will become an independent company in a month. And then someday we'll probably graduate and leave the space. So that's the pattern, one company after another. NeuroSonics, Neo's company, has been with us a while, making good progress. Modular Matter, Jeff Geyer's company. Jeff is engineer at MDC. He has spun out his own company and building a very, very novel device for children, and so on. And so there are several companies behind those in the queue. Jonathan's company is at a very exciting stage. We put the thermal imaging laparoscope on the back burner, but we have a new project which is perhaps more exciting, and we'll begin building that in the next couple of months. So So I think what makes MDC a little bit different is the base of engineers, the ability to start at the very beginning with an idea, just a sketch. We actually have ideas that were sketches, and then get them to a point where they can receive significant funding and enter the marketplace. So that's what we do sometimes. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you for jumping in with that overview. Now let's go to Neo. Now that we have a little bit better idea about how MDC got started, why don't you tell us at what stage you decided to enter MDC and why you decided to enter a startup studio?
Sure. So we joined MDC at the end of 2018. At that stage, so I had just left my academic research career, and I teamed up with with the inventor of the device at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Amir Mambachi. And at that time, Amir had just simulation. He just had this idea, IP, and some simulation data. We didn't have any kind of prototype yet. And I realized that I was the main person who's going to be trying to take it forward in a commercial sense. And I'm not an engineer and I'm not a neurosurgeon. My background is in neuroscience research. And so I realized that I needed, I had no business background. So I realized I needed technical help. So I needed a technical mentor and I needed a business mentor. So I felt that after talking to a lot of, I realized I needed help. I talked to several people in the community, in the entrepreneurial community here, but I realized that MDC had exactly what I needed at that stage. And so I joined, and then we co-founded, MDC and myself co-founded NeuroSonics Medical together. And so the first thing we actually did was we did iPort together as a team. So that was that I think that made a huge impact on the direction of our company since then. We also had the TEDCO's MII Phase 1 Awards. So MDC actually helped us with our very first prototype. And since then, it's been, we meet regularly. Before we were all in the office all the time, but even now, we meet, at least every other week, more as needed. It's been, I think it's made it makes a real difference when I can just, text Stephen and say, hey, does this make sense? Or I say, Gil, is this where I'm supposed to hire a lawyer or not? And he'll say, no, you don't need to pay a lawyer at this stage. So I think that's been really, really helpful to have that guidance. I think it makes things a lot more efficient because I can rely on, even coming with no, startup experience, I can rely on the experience of all the other portfolio companies that are there.
Great. Stephen, would you like to make some comments?
Sure. So I started out as an employee of MDC. So I'll let Jeff talk about why Sonosa got started in a startup studio, but I can talk about my own personal experience, why I came to MDC from the beginning. And that was mostly because as I was leaving grad school, like I said before, I was really interested in translating technologies and was, frustrated myself about the distance from actual tangible products that my research and a lot of the research around me had been when I was in grad school. And so I really wanted to find a place where I could take that early stage research and make something productive out of it, something that would actually impact the patients that I was writing about in the intro sections of publications. And so I think finding MDC a place where the clinical application was merged with the technical development from the very beginning was really attractive to me. And since I've been here, it's been a lot of fun and really enlightening to kind of see the process, transitioning products from the earliest stages up through now, we're creating a product in Sonosa Medical. So it's been everything that I was looking for and more. So it's I'm really glad I found a startup studio model in MDC specifically.
Yeah, so for me, when I came and sort of first met Gil, I think I had four patents that I filed and were pending. And like Jonathan said, being a busy clinician, being a surgeon, there was really no time to really work through things and figure out how to prototype, and had no experience with engineering, no experience with finance, and how in terms of how to build a company. And so it was just going to languish. And I met Gil, and MDC was formed, and you know, with engineering expertise and finance expertise, and frankly grant writing expertise, which allows you to get funding to really move your projects along. So that's really where it's just been wonderfully beneficial, and why Sonosa Medical has really found a wonderful home there.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Brad?
Yeah. So again, similar story to everyone else. So I was working with a group of researchers at the University of Maryland and the Baltimore VA that were working on some pretty advanced and interesting rehabilitation technologies. I was coordinating research for about 14 investigators at that point in time. So I was watching IP get generated, but I wasn't seeing anything happen with that IP. At the same time, while I was doing that, I went back to school and got my master's in healthcare administration, which is when I took my first business class. Light bulbs went off, so I followed that up with my MBA. And then started to look into this. Why doesn't IP come out of the universities? There's a tremendous amount of federal funding and things that comes in, and fantastic research. But why aren't we like Boston and California and New York, and cranking out opportunities like this? So I met with OTT, the Office of Technology Transfer, and started to learn about the ecosystem that was here, and for supporting young entrepreneurs and taking this step forward. And I expressed some of these similar interests with OTT, and they said, you should meet this guy named Gil. He's got a lot of the same feelings that you do about you know, the lack of technology transfer that's happening here. So I met Gil. I found out about the TEDCO MII program. I found about TEDCO in general, who has just a tremendous amount of programs for early stage companies. And we met Gil, and we realized, okay, he understands our dilemma, and he has that engineering background to understand how to help us form that team. He provided the MDC provided that initial infrastructure with the engineers to bring the device forward. But one thing that I wasn't realizing was going to be so important, that I came to understand, was it's a really engineering driven startup studio. And what that allows is for a really unique opportunity where there's almost like an engineering roundtable that happens. And you can bring on board, when you get a little bit of funding, you can bring on board young, ambitious engineers who don't necessarily have all the experience in the world, but they have the drive, the passion, and the talent to become very good employees. And you can really cut down the risk a lot of hiring the inexperience, because you have this engineering roundtable that they can bounce ideas off of each other. So while I started with 2 engineers, it was more like 7 or 8 engineers whose ideas were helping to drive this thing forward. I know it's hard to identify, you know, time saved and money saved by that, but it's obvious, it's painfully obvious that there was a tremendous amount of time and money that we have saved to bring us to where we are. Because my young, inexperienced engineers, I've got a great CTO that understands, you know, our control system. He's the inventor and everything. But in terms of developing the hardware and the electrical components that go into it, Stephen was there. We could bounce ideas off of him. There's other engineers that were there that they could say, I've done this before, don't do it this way, do it that way. And we skip steps. That's, you know, it's a lot of engineering is trial and error. Well, we had a lot less error than I think we would have had without that type of support.
Great. Thank you for those comments. And continuing on that discussion about the types of support that you had at MDC, I would like to give everyone kind of a sneak peek behind the curtain, because some people may not be aware of everything that goes on at a startup studio. So for you all, you know, what is it like to actually be in the studio, and how did MDC support your companies at various stages? Maybe you could highlight 1 or 2 things that go on behind the curtain, and I'll share that with our audience today. So Neo? Actually, I usually go Jonathan first, but
Yeah,
whoever wants to go first. Naya was smiling at me.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
I've had a lot of hand holding from MDC, I have to be honest with you. I've really learned a lot about this whole process through the people involved with MDC. The most quantifiable thing I could say is the grant writing. And these business grants like SBIRs are completely distinct from NIH type grants that we're used to writing in medicine. And Gil in particular has been immensely helpful in helping me write grants. We started with the TEDCO grant in 2015. And I had no idea at that time how to write a commercialization pathway and stuff like that. But now I do have an idea. And when it comes to grant writing, I can put all the science in and put the rudimentary portions of the business in, and then the MDC can help me fill it in and make it a professional commercialization plan. So for me, that's been the most beneficial, and it's finally reaped dividends for grant funding.
Excellent. Thank you. Now let's go to Naya, who is still smiling.
Yeah, I think I wanted to mention one of the things, so I do appreciate all the guidance I've gotten, especially coming from a research background. And I think one of the things I'm actually really excited about is Deb is putting together a 3-year program for portfolio companies, and we have a pretty comprehensive list of milestones to reach, to check off in order to graduate from this program. I think that's really helpful, because I know that when I was transitioning into entrepreneurship, there are so many moving parts, and it's and I attended all these webinars and seminars and read articles, and I try to do accelerator programs that are out there, but it's one thing to understand the concepts, but it's quite another to know exactly how to apply it in my specific unique case. So I think that's where I got a lot of value, knowing, how do I actually, I know I'm supposed to search the IP landscape, but, what exactly am I supposed to pay attention to there? And, there's, I feel like becoming an entrepreneur, it was almost like starting grad school all over again. At the start, you don't know what you don't know, and it might take a little while to figure out, where all the pieces fit. So I think I'm really excited about, the program that Deb is developing.
Great, glad to hear that. All right, Stephen.
So when Sonosa first got started at MDC, or at least when I joined the project, I was kind of the MDC support in the background. So basically my first month at MDC, Sonosa was my first assignment. I wrote a grant. We were lucky enough to get it. And then since that time, I've basically been loaning myself out to this new entity to kind of create this technology. And so basically as part of MDC, I've been leading the technical development, creating this prototype. And because of that, that support, we would not have had the ability, or Sonosa would not have had the ability at that time to hire the number and quality of engineers that MDC was able to provide. And so, the people that I've been working with to get this prototype built at MDC have just been, irreplaceable. And so having that support to actually build the prototype far beyond what a normal startup would have been able to have at that point has just been, I think, invaluable.
And so for me, the behind the curtains thing, the thing that makes it so special are 2 things. Number 1 is the engineers. I mean, you walk in there and I can have a conversation. Stephen's a brilliant engineer, Gil's a brilliant engineer, and I can walk in, and talk to them about an issue with related, with related to the technology or how to build it, and they have the answer, they know. and that's very unusual to have. The one nice thing is when you talk about physicians and you talk about engineers, other than our freshman courses in college, we have nothing in that's similar. So it's very helpful because we all bring different things to the table, and the creativity and the engineering is amazing. The other thing that is a huge benefit is the number of physician partners we have that cover many different specialties. And so, although I'm a head and neck surgeon, there might be some aspect of my device that I hadn't thought about, but Stephen is a general surgeon with different experiences. Raj Sarkar is a vascular surgeon with different experiences. We can all help improve each other's project and each other's product just by bringing our own experiences and specialties to it.
Yeah, for me, again, I won't belabor the fact of how engineering helped us, and I'll talk about two other things that really kind of helped us move forward. One was, again, the business standpoint. I'm a first-time first-time entrepreneur, and sitting in MDC and being able to have those conversations with Gil around, what makes a value proposition, the importance of identifying payers, and why they would pay. You've got to build something that either makes or saves someone money, or else it's not going to get adopted by the market. That's bottom line. It's unfortunate a lot of times, but it's the truth. So hearing that truth and understanding it to how to push forward really helps you with that early business development type activities. And then it helps introduce you to the right people who are willing to listen to your business idea. The other thing that MDC did that helped me was there's various programs around the state that incentivize investment and things like that. One of those is the Biotech Tax Credit. One of the requirements for the Biotech Tax Credit which if you're not familiar with it, is if you are a biotech company, you can receive investment from an accredited investor, and that investor can actually get 50% of their investment back if you qualify and do the correct things with the signing up and everything. But one of the things that you have to have with that is a full-time employee who's not a founder or an executive. So MDC had two engineers that built my device. They allowed me to hire one of the engineers that allowed us to actually bring on board that first investor and utilize that biotech tax credit in our seed round, which is really early to qualify for that investment. So we got a $500,000 investment, and we got $250,000 sent back to our investors because of that kind of just flexibility that was offered for an opportunity that was there.
Great. All that is great to hear. And we've heard a lot from our startups, and it can also be useful to think of MDC itself as a startup that helps startups. And at MDC, we're always innovating, and we're always working on new companies, not only the companies that we've been hearing from today, but also at our own studio. So we pivot and we try new things. And two of the new things that we recently implemented are a robust screening process and a structured accelerator. So if you are at the earlier stages of your businesses, I'd like to hear about your value for using our new tools. But then also, if you are maybe further along, you can talk about the benefit of these tools, or also some upcoming milestones that you have in your own future goals in your startups. So Jonathan, I'll hand it off to you.
The programs help me with record keeping and things like that. Surgeons, doctors are notoriously bad at keeping track of things. And if you don't keep track of things at the beginning, it's going to be kind of painful when you're trying to attract investors, when you're trying to file tax returns, when you're trying to file with the SEC, anything like that. So Deb has really got me started on that, and I'm quite thankful now. I'm sure I'll be very thankful in the future.
Neo, to you.
Yeah, so NeuroSonics has been around for a few years now. So we didn't the screening program that she mentioned, and also the 3-year program she's developed didn't exist then. But yeah, as a VP of business development now at MDC, I'm involved in the screening process and trying to implement the program. I love that part of being a part of the startup studio because, like Brad, I'm a first-time entrepreneur getting to the medtech space. There's a lot to learn. And I think, I've been able to learn from these other companies in parallel, and also learn about, when an idea comes in, how to assess those before, investing our resources in it. So that's been really, I think that's helped me to learn faster than if I weren't part of MDC. But yeah, no, I love, it helps for me to even just look at how the program is structured, because I think, I've been at this for a few years, but I realize, little places where I might have missed something, or, and things like that. So I can make sure that, I'm not missing, little pieces here and there. So yeah, and then looking forward to, I think I forgot to mention earlier that, through MDC's help, we're now funded by the NSF STTR Phase 1 Award in collaboration with Hopkins. And our next milestone is preparing for the Phase 2 application and looking to raise more funds.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about the technical and the clinical benefits that MDC provides, but as I've been transitioning from a technical role into the CEO of Sonosa, it's been a learning curve for me, and that has been made much easier by the presence of all the expertise at MDC, and having a kind of a roadmap that lays out all of the critical milestones is going to be really useful for me as I learn how to structure all of the things that need to be done in order to get these products to market. And so the ability to predict and kind of collect the necessary resources at the right time, because I have that roadmap, is going to be invaluable as as I'm trying to balance everything from prototype development, preclinical trials, to budgeting and hiring and all that kind of stuff. So having all of these things organized in such a way that me as somebody with limited business experience, except for what I've learned at MDC, is really unique, and it'll be very helpful in helping us move much faster.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to that, but what I would say is, when you think about these things, and the thing where MDC has been very helpful also is considering things like when to involve the FDA, when to have a Q-sub meeting. So because you have a product or a potential product, you're going to be testing it, and you want to figure out what you need, what milestones you need to reach, and how you're going to get this product to the market. And the last thing you want to do is not be doing these processes in parallel, and all of a sudden be like, okay, we're ready, and then recognize you have to go to the FDA, and then the FDA says, oh no, your clinical, the clinical trial you did wasn't appropriate, or things like that. So MDC is really good at guiding the inventor, guiding the engineers, guiding basically the companies to really keeping your sights on many different targets.
Yeah, and for me, again, I'm a case where I came into the program when MDC was very early, and was perhaps a bit of a guinea pig going forward. So what really a lot of what happened was really just giving me the confidence that I could actually take this forward as a company myself, and providing that expertise that says, okay, well, these are the steps that you need to take to get to where you're having that appropriate product market fit and things, and telling us when, okay, you should talk to the FDA. You can go talk to the FDA anytime for these Q-sub programs. I had no idea what a Q-sub program was, so made the introductions to have a consultant to help go forward with the Q-sub, and really just teaching you that it's a lot about asking questions to the right people. The whole point of a Q-sub is you're asking the FDA very early on, hey, we've got this idea. Is this the appropriate clinical trial to do to get this idea approved through the FDA process. And they'll tell you, no, you need better outcomes, or you need to do redo your power analysis for your study sample size and things like that. They'll tell you those things. The only way that you know it, though, is if you go and you ask. And they really help lay down the roadmap, as Stephen said, to kind of who to go ask those questions to first, and how to navigate the pathway. It's not there's not a clear linear line to get from point A of starting the startup to having product market fit, but they can tell you, well, it makes a lot more sense to go talk to the FDA before you go talk to CMS, Center for Medicare Medicaid, just because otherwise you're just going to create more questions and have less answers. So really having that roadmap of where to go first and who to line up with, and then building that confidence that says, okay, when you go into a meeting and they bring up an idea that you're not familiar with or everything, just take a step back, do a little bit of research on what it is, and learn and ask the right questions, and you can take this forward too.
Great, thank you for that. All right, and we have a couple more minutes here, so I'll ask a final question, and then I will take questions or comments from anyone else in the audience. So the last thing I'd like to know from you all is, what makes an ideal portfolio company?
I can start. I think it's something, an idea that addresses a need, especially a clinical need in medicine. For our company in particular, for MDC, it's something that we can build a prototype for, that we can show to investors, that we can test in an animal, that will generate some excitement in one of those arenas.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as I mentioned earlier, MDC's sweet spot is really in the early stages where, you're kind of still straddling between the research side and turning that and translating that into a commercializable product. And so I think, at least right now, we're still evolving, but right now it's, an ideal company would be, something that's based on health or medical technology that's been generated as a result of research at a university or elsewhere. Even if something's still at the idea stage, I think MDC is really good at working at the really early stages and trying to get the company to a good start. And I think along with that, I think an ideal founder whom we'd work with is someone who's open to pivoting and really trying to really facing whether this is a good idea or not, even if you hear things that you don't want to. As part of NeuroSonics, we've certainly heard from surgeons, no, this is a terrible idea, don't do that. And I think we just have to be willing to face that and listen to that, and decide what you're going to do with that information.
Yeah, I think especially with these early stage projects, I think one of the best things that I've seen that's pushed projects along is having a set of founders and inventors, one that want to use this product. If it's especially when you're coming from the medical field, if it's something that the inventors want to use in their own practice, you've got at least one customer, right? But it helps, these, especially with the founders of MDC, who are all very experienced and very well respected in their fields, you have at least some level of confidence that this is a true need. And so that at the very earliest stages, that's really valuable. And then I think on top of that, one of the sweet spots for MDC is a technology that the average inventor couldn't just build in their garage, right? It's something that would take a reasonable amount of technical experience and resources in order to get to your first testing stage, something that you need to prove feasibility. And so a studio that kind of collects some of those resources and provides them to you at those earliest stages, where you can get to that first critical technical milestone, I think is really where the value of MDC is most evident, at least for, I think for a lot of panelists here, I would say that's probably the case, and definitely for Sonosa. Building wearable ultrasound devices is not something I would have done in my garage. And so I think, having that, like we mentioned before, the infrastructure that MDC provides and the talent to actually do something like that and get it into preclinical trials within basically 2 years of starting the project is pretty phenomenal.
So I'll go ahead and add mine. So yeah, I think it's early stage, ripe for grant funding. Is the other thing. It's, and that's, NSF calls itself the seed fund of America, right? And that's because they take on very early stage companies that are in the idea phase, and really de-risk products before they're ready for venture capital and things. So there's such a large range of what is right for grant funding type of things. But yeah, something that is early stage, there's a good grant funding pathway to take it forward. That's really kind of the sweet spot. That was our sweet spot to come into MDC.
Excellent. All right. Well, with that, we will wrap up. We are almost at the hour. So I'd like to thank everyone so much for joining us on this panel today. And if you all have any questions about entrepreneurship, or you want to learn more about what we do at MDC, feel free to reach out. You can get in touch with us on our website or on LinkedIn or social media. Also, we would love to have you all join our monthly meetups, and those are open, and we'd love to have you join those as well. So I hope that everyone, you enjoy the rest of the Baltimore Innovation Week sessions and have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.